so beautiful, and I tell her every day. Yeah, I know, when I compliment her, she won't believe me, and it's so
Firstly, welcome really to all the world here tonight. There are folk here from 18 different countries who witness the union between two amazing people, Alan and Erin. This is the greatest privilege for me as Alan's second godfather, to be here today welcoming all of you, mostly from the USA and South Africa, to this wonderful day in their lives and our lives, and at the same time to thank all those involved in making this a wonderful time for both of them. So I suppose you're asking, who am I and what am I doing here? How did I get to be this guy standing at this mic? I won't talk too long. I could. I was born in 1948, the year of apartheid. A little bit serious. Some people blame J.H. Hofmeyr for scaring away the moderates by a speech he made to save South Africa, which enabled the nationalists to lead us into some sort of purgatory the year that I was born. And I just want to quote something of his, and it'll give you some idea, and then you'll see where I'm going with this. Quote from Geoff Hofmeyr before the 1948 election. The plain truth, whether we like it or not, is that the dominant mentality on South Africa is a Herrenvolk mentality. The essential feature of our race problems is to be found in that fact. The true solution of these problems must be found in a changing of that mentality. More and more South Africa is suffering because of politics, and the dominant attitudes of mind do not measure up to what are becoming to be accepted internationally as standards of value. But our chief loss is a moral loss. So, what is the connection here? Well, J.H. Hofmeyr, myself, and Alan are all Sax old boys. Both my parents were activists, so I became a history teacher, and then I met Alan in 1991. So how did I meet Alan in 1991? Me, the history teacher, coming from the 1948 collapse. And my erstwhile English teacher, Doug Brown, and then he became my mentor when I went to teach at Sax, and then he became a very good friend of mine. And he passed away recently. He walked into the staff room at Sax one morning, and when Doug was angry, he would come in and his cape would be flowing behind him, and you could see he had a set on his face. And he said, and this was in 1985, and he said, he just walked in, stood in the front, and he said, "What has happened to us? Here we're not doing anything about the fact that education is segregated. And we are the greatest liberal school in South Africa, or we call ourselves that. So let's do something." And this was an impassioned plea from Doug. That angry comment of his led to the Open Schools movement of 1985 under the guidance of our governing body chairman. And so Sax pioneered the Open Schools movement. In 1991, before apartheid was even abandoned. And I then had the massive privilege of meeting this amazing Alan. And he has left deep footprints at Sax and amongst all boys. He's left some deep footprints in me, and I think in all of those who know him. He carried the hopes of his family, Neil and Margie, and his brother Robin, his community, and really an expectant South Africa. He follows in the footsteps of J.H. Hofmeyr, who really is one of South Africa's great sons and an unsung hero to many. He follows in the footsteps of Lord Leonard Hoffman, Lord Privy Council, Professor Singer, pioneer of hand surgery internationally, Sean Day, the biggest private owner of shipping in the world, John Room, remember that name, Regional Director, Asia Pacific at the World Bank, and so many other pioneering Saxe old boys worldwide who are changing the world. Now, why do I say changing the world? In grade 12, Alan made a memorable comment. One day I want to change the world. He sure changed ours by being elected a prefect at Saxe. But he reminded me of that quote after he had graduated from UCT as an accountant, worked his way up into the hearts and minds of SAB and friends in Johannesburg, and been headhunted into Discovery Health. And one day we were sitting around his folks' table and he said, "Geoff, I'm bored." Remember when I said at school that I wanted to change the world? Well, my reply was to remember that being an accountant is not really dynamic, it's pretty challenging. But he was brave enough, and I told him to place his CV with the United Nations, the European Union, and the World Bank, and the rest, of course, as we know, is history. He is changing the world, one country at a time, with all his colleagues, including the Saxe old boy John Room, who also, by the way, is a Rhodes Scholar. But the biggest change of all for Alan, of really gargantuan proportions, he met Erin. And that has changed the world. Their world, our world. The wonderful, magic, bright as a button, South Carolina educated lady from Vermont, daughter of Dave and Barbara. She bowled him over. So he didn't bowl the maiden over, she bowled him over. So today is the day of the union of these two dear friends and son and daughter and family of all of us sitting here. The world has changed. And boy, is it a bright and happy one. So, Mr. and Mrs. Alan and Erin Golding, we love you, we cherish you, and we expect you to make this world so much more an even happier place. A toast to Alan and Erin. We're going to hear from the two dads.